there's some really important news happening in Ottawa that is not going to be reported on the mainstream media. And you need to hear about this because it is going to affect your pocketbook. So I'm going to break this news down for you, and it has to do with the Liberals' carbon tax, the highly unpopular, very expensive carbon tax. And it also has to do with the Liberal leadership race. So I'm going to break all of this down for you. But before I do that, I had, like, again, you guys are not going to hear about this on the mainstream media. It's my job to communicate to you, but I have to fight against Justin Trudeau's censorship bans, Bill C-18, Bill C-11. And for those of you who think that Bill C-63 is totally dead, the Liberals could resurrect it if the NDP prop them up after prorogation comes back. So guys, for me to be able to give this information to you, I have to be able to communicate with you. And how you can help me, and I beg of you this, click on the link that's in the comments or in the video description if you're watching this in YouTube. This is vitally critical information. If you click on that and click subscribe, it's free and it allows me to directly communicate with you, avoid social media bans, algorithms, all of Justin Trudeau's censorship. And this is only going to get worse as the Liberals get more desperate, as prorogation continues on. So I need to fight the Liberals, to fight prorogation, I need to be able to communicate with you. Please click subscribe. It takes 1 second, it's free, and it allows me to get this information to you. So let's talk about what happened today with the carbon tax, the Liberal leadership race, and how they're going to try to fool you. So I'm going to give you 2 pieces of background. First of all, how many of you guys know who this guy here is? So this guy being arrested in this jumpsuit here, this is Steven Guilbeault, Canada's Environment Minister. So if you're not familiar with him, he is a very radical left, far left environmental activist. He's a radical. He would describe himself that way. I think he's even described himself as a socialist before. I can't remember. One of them did. It might have been him. But he is, so here, this is where he was being arrested for his radicalism back in the past. But he has been the one, the environment minister. He is the guy that's behind all of the farthest left, most punitive policies that the government has had with regard to the carbon tax. So many of you know that the carbon tax has increased in Canada. It's made Canada very non-competitive in terms of investment, and job creation. But more importantly, all of you are paying it right now. If you're watching this and you're living in Canada, your pocketbook is being affected by the carbon tax that he put in place, that he has vigorously defended. And of course, with Justin Trudeau's help and all of the Liberals, the Liberal Party, he is the reason why everything costs more with regard to the carbon tax. Okay, so this is somebody who has, for years, I've been fighting against this guy and these policies that they don't materially reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but they sure make things more expensive for you. And they, of course, help rich banker guys like who? Mark Carney, Mark Carbon Tax Carney. Now, Mark Carney is a former central banker, but he's also been on the board of all of these major giant companies like Brookfield. He was on the board of Bloomberg News. He was also the head of the UN climate change, one of these climate change initiatives, climate change and financing. And he was trying to put together this like multinational banking scheme to invest in these, sort of ESG, net zero initiatives that recently, like in the last month or so, most banks have pulled out of. So where do these 2 people, Steven Guilbeault and Mark Carney, come together? Well, today, Steven Guilbeault announced that he was going to endorse Mark Carney to be the next Liberal leader, which in turn, he will be, if Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership race, he will become the Prime Minister of Canada. So that's a piece of news, but there's something really, really important that you need to understand about this. So the Liberals, knowing how unpopular, and rightly so, the carbon taxes in Canada, because it doesn't really do anything to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and it also makes your life so much more expensive. They've been kind of floating to the media that like, oh, well, maybe we won't have the carbon tax. But both Mark Carney and the other frontrunner, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, and the finance minister who's been in charge of all these taxation, when they launched their campaigns in the last week, both of them were asked straight up, are you scrapping the carbon tax? And what do you think that they said? Take a wild guess in that moment. Word salad, of course. They danced around it because they want you to believe that somehow they're going to change their stripes and all of a sudden you're going to be paying less. But when we know, like we know that their history, like these people have over and over and over again for decades supported carbon tax. They've made their business off of these types of taxation. Now I'm going to get to where Guilbeault and Carney come together in a second, but it's really important. There's one piece of context that you need to understand for what I'm about to say as a proof point. So when I say that if Mark Carney says anything about the carbon tax, or Steven Guilbeault or Chrystia Freeland, you have to understand that these people they're not only the architects of this policy, sometimes globally, right? They've been involved with the World Economic Forum. They've pushed this policy through the United Nations. Mark Carney, there's so many quotes of him recently advocating for the carbon tax. So for example, here's a quote from Mark Carney. I'm sitting here in Canada, legislative carbon price going to $170 by 2030. And even though it's Canadian dollars, that's still a lot of money. So focusing the mind brings us to the future. We see that shift. This is literally one of 100 quotes of Mark Carney, like advocating internationally for the carbon tax here in Canada. Here's another quote from him. Now, so far, carbon prices have been applied sparingly, but they've been set too low. So this is a guy that wants to increase it. He's been out there advocating this all the time, right? Chrystia Freeland is the exact same way. Every single time that she's had an opportunity to axe the carbon tax, she's done what? She's increased it. This woman has voted for the carbon tax countless times. I've been in the House of Commons when she did that. And she was the finance minister, and never once did she speak up and say that the carbon tax should be axed. No, she did the opposite. She made it go up in price. And in fact, the carbon tax is set to increase again on April the 1st. And we've heard nothing from the Liberals outside of their pushing ahead with that costly agenda. Now, let's go back to our friend, Mr. Guilbeault, the carbon tax Asian guy in chief, and Mark Carney. So today, Steven Guilbeault, as I said, he came out and endorsed Mark Carney for leader. Of course he did. These two are like carbon tax peas in a pod. But here's the interesting thing. Here's the real kicker. And just because I have to do it as a teaser, please click subscribe to the link that's in the comments and in the video description so I can directly communicate this stuff to you, so you can get it delivered to your inbox for free so that you can see this and talk about it to your friends. Okay, so here's the kicker. Steven Guilbeault endorses Mark Carney, and this is what he says. He goes, Guilbeault, the carbon tax staunchest defender, admits it could be replaced, not axed, replaced. Okay, let's hold on to that thought for a second. And then the subheader says, the federal environment minister admits there are alternatives to this very unpopular tax, and blames the Conservatives for making it so. Not blaming them, not being introspective and saying this is a disaster policy that has cost Canadians, all sorts of opportunity because the cost of everything has gone up. No, but you have to understand this. I am an expert in detecting this. Replaced and alternatives. What does that mean in liberal speak? It means making it worse. It means making it worse. They're not saying get rid of it. They're not admitting that it's going to cost you more. They're not saying that they should decrease the carbon tax in April. I'm telling you right now, replaced and alternative means making it worse. It means making it worse and changing its name. And the third thing it means that they think that you are dumb enough to believe this. Honestly, that's what these people think. They honestly sit around and talk about things like, well, if we just change the name on this and like increase it, Canadians will never know, because they think you're dumb. They actually think you're stupid. They actually think all of us here can't, after years of them advocating and ruining our country on this, understand that when we hear a word salad liberal like our jumpsuit friend here being arrested say that they're going to replace it, it means making it worse and changing its name. That's all it means. Now, I have one more piece of proof. If you guys are like, well, Michelle, it can't be that bad. All of you know with this Liberal government, it is that bad, and it's probably worse. But here's a proof point for somebody thinking that. This is like not even 2 months ago. Okay, same paper on the headline that I just pulled out. I'm sorry the image is mirrored, but it says Guilbeault won't back off the carbon tax, oil and gas cap, despite Trump's tariffs. So this is like fresh news. So do you really think that like our jumpsuit friend here, who is just out in the news being cray-cray, saying that all of us should pay for his tax, like very recently, that all of a sudden he's had a change of heart, an epiphany? No, he thinks you're stupid. And that's why people like Carney and Freeland and Guilbeault are using these words like replaced and alternative, right? Because what that means is they're just going to change the name and make it worse. They're probably going to make it far worse because they think that you're not going to notice. And the other thing is Parliament is prorogued right now, right? So there's few opportunities. Like in a normal period of time, we would be convening the Environment Committee and being like, what does this mean? Right? What does replaced and alternative mean? At a time when Canada, the Liberals have bankrupted the economy, we're facing multiple generationally significant challenges. What does that mean? How much is my constituents going to have to pay for this? Right? They're probably sitting around right now, literally thinking about how to just tweak the name and make it worse. That's what they're doing right now. But they're doing it with the benefit of not having the scrutiny of Parliament because they prorogued it, right? So it is very important for you guys to understand, to share this video, to talk to your friends, to click subscribe on the link that's in the comments and get this information out, that the Liberals will never, ever eliminate this job-killing tax. They're never going to do it. Their entire history and reason for existence is this tax. They've built a religion around this tax, a political religion. And right here, again, this guy, he is a radical, right? This has been his whole life. His entire life has been built around this. And so for Guilbeault, my suspicion on motive is that he's doing this because he sees, so all of Justin Trudeau's machine, right? His pollsters, his chief of staff, it was reported by the Sun that his chief of staff was involved, his former senior secretary, Gerald Butts, they're all involved in Mark Carney's campaign. They're trying to anoint Mark Carney. Mark Carney or Chrystia Freeland, it doesn't matter. They're all the same people. But the reason why Stephen Guilbeault wants to go to Mark Carney is he thinks he's going to be able to do what if he endorses him? Keep his job as Canada's radical environmental minister. That's really what this is all about, personal profit and securing jobs. So, excuse me. So you have to understand that this is where they're at. When Liberals are coming out, and you're going to hear this a lot, and the mainstream media is they're not going to tell you this. They're not going to break it down for you in this way. So again, know that when you hear the words replaced or alternative, all that means is that they're going to change the name and make it worse. That's it. So do not be fooled, and do not let Canadians be fooled by this. Share this video. Please click subscribe. Many of you asked me how you can help. I need this message to get out to as many Canadians as possible. All of my fellow Conservative colleagues are doing this type of research. We're trying to communicate with you, but we're also facing Justin Trudeau's censorship agenda, his censorship bills, the news bans on social media platforms, algorithms. We're fighting all of these things. So we need you to click subscribe. It allows me to directly communicate with you. And please share this video so that we can get the word out. working hard for you. Do not be fooled. Have a great day.